What in the fuck is the Atari Box? That was a question that came to the forefront of my Alpha Omega head meat as I gazed upon all these 3D renderings that they unleashed to ravenous fans all over the internet, wondering, what the fuck is this? Is it actually going to be a thing? Please tell me it's not going to be like the Phantom or some vaporware like the Coleco Chameleon or anything like that. Is this going to be the NES Mini Killer, SNES Mini Killer, the NES Classic? I have no fucking clue. Is this going to be a straight up plug and play system? Is this going to be a set-top box? Is this an all new console altogether? Nobody fucking knows because Atari hasn't said shit. So allow everybody to begin speculating and assuming and theorizing as much as we possibly can because, well, that's about all that we can do at this particular point in time. Outside of seeing what they want this system to look like, which I will say this. First and foremost, the way that the system looks aesthetically is fucking phenomenal. Now, I don't give a shit. Somebody can be like, you're some kind of hipster fucking douche because there's a wood grain. One wood grain actually looks pretty fucking cool. I don't give a shit. Maybe it's because I grew up with a bunch of really ugly ass things inside my fucking house that had wood grain on it. But when it's applied to things like this thing looks nice as fuck. Like, it looks slick. This looks like some shit that you'd see in a showcase in, like, IKEA or some kind of fucking crap like that. All lit up with the Atari logo. And I'm like, alright, it actually looks nice. And they've got that version, then they've got a black and red version, so it looks all fucking evil and shit. So I'm like, okay, so you got these versions, but again, this is just their mock-up 3D rendered versions. There isn't anything physical in hand to be able to pick up and be like, voila, this is what the system will look like. Here's the dimensions, here's the guts to it. And by the way, that's some shit that they've been very ho-hum about. We don't know anything about release date. Don't know about the controller. We don't know what kind of operating system this is going to have. It's clearly not taking physical games. Sure, you can put an SD card slot and it's got an Ethernet port on the back, but outside of that, you're not seeing any kind of physical card. So if you're hoping to take your 2600 and 5200 and fucking 7800 cards and jam those bitches inside there, or you're going to try to bring back all your shit from the Atari ST days, you're shit out of luck. It's not going to happen here. But that's not to assume that they won't make it available in a digital space. I'm just kind of assuming that this is going to be a set-top box, kind of like a Steam box, or this will be similar to like the Nvidia Shield, for example. That's what I see this being, but they're utilizing the Atari name and having like the aesthetic factor, which is, again, leaps and bounds above anybody out there. Like, I don't see this competing with like PS4, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, or anything. Nothing like that. I see this just being a streaming box, some shit that's all digital downloads. You want to go and get apps and shit, you can go and download those, but it depends on what OS they're going to go with. To me, I've always figured, okay, you know what'd be the simplest? Go with Android, because you got so many options right there at your beck and call, and you've got a platform that millions are already used to, and there's so many things that are genuinely from the fucking, like, ground up integrated into Android. Why the hell not? I mean, somebody could also say, well, what about Linux? You could also go with some shit like that. I still think Android would be a little bit better, but if it was Linux-based, depending on the specs, you'd be able to go and make this into some kind of beastly-ass machine. I mean, we see all the Raspberry Pi machines that are out there. Just imagine, like, if they just went balls to the wall with something like this. You never know. Because, again, we can only speculate because we have no other information. I was getting asked about this, but I was like, fuck, there's, like, no info. And a while ago, they had, like, the Atari Box website, and people were like, what do you think? What do you think? I'm like, I don't know. I thought the shit was a hoax. And still right now, I'm kind of, like, sideways glancing at this shit, like, is this actually real? Like, are they fucking with us? I have no clue. Like, are they testing the waters right now to get some kind of an idea of what sort of interest is out there in a product like this without even dropping any info on it? I mean, we don't know. We don't know about the price of it. We don't know what the fuck we're going to get out of this. I mean, the only thing that they have said is, well, this isn't going to compete with the NES Mini, the NES Classic, and all this shit. Like, it's not competing with those because we've already got the Atari Flashback plug-and-play series. So I was like, alright, that makes sense. That makes total sense. So that's what made me start leaning towards the idea that this is just going to be a digital-only download machine that will allow you to be able to play games that way, get apps so you can go and stream your movies and TV shows and music and all sorts of other shit off of that machine. That's what I'm guessing. And to me, that makes the most amount of sense. I don't know what kind of controller that they're going to have for this shit. if we're going towards the entire ideology that this is just going to be digital and streaming only, then I imagine that they might end up following in the footsteps of something like the NVIDIA Shield, where you can get a basic regular-ass controller and a remote control, and more likely bundling both in with that bitch. If they're smart, they'll end up doing some shit like that. By the way, the NVIDIA Shield is fucking awesome as hell. I've actually got one, and I've enjoyed the living crap out of it. But if Atari decided to throw their hat in on this, you figure they've got a wealth of games that they could go and provide for this shit right out of the box. Just imagine this. Okay, so they got the Atari flashback games that you can go and get in like PC and console and all that shit, and it's a gargantuan fucking shitstorm of them out, like tons of them just packed into there. Well, if you provided every single one of these games on the system right out the gate, people would have something to do with the machine immediately, just like that. And if you were Android-based and would be able to get a lot more use out of this, depending on the specs of it, there's a whole lot of games on the Android marketplace that we'd be able to go and tinker and fuck around with. And that's not including, like, emulation. Emulation out the ass. But I'm just wondering about this because I'm like, well, are they going to end up having their own store? Are they back to making games? Like, are they trying to pick up any little development studios? Are they going to ink some deals that get exclusivity rights with indie developers to make games just for this? Like, there's a lot of stuff I just have no idea what they plan on doing. Like, are they going to end up outsourcing the controller to some kind of third-party company? Or are we going to see them bring back, like, the little paddle controllers that turn like this for certain games? Like, are we going to see the OG Atari controller, one button, one stick, and just play that shit? Like, are they doing that? Don't know. I have no fucking idea. Like, we don't know about the operating system. We don't know if it's just pretty much like a Steam box, essentially, or like an NVIDIA Shield or some shit. We don't know if they're directly competing at all. Like, the last time that I had heard, Atari pretty much had went bankrupt and then was resurrected, and then some dealings with like casinos and shit, and then all of a sudden we had seen the Atari Flashback series, again, is just plug and play systems. That's all. Which, if you're like an old school gaming fan, which like that's before my time and shit, I was like NES going forward, but if you're into that kind of shit, those things are pretty fun and they're novel for what you're going to get out of them. Plus, I think it's a better idea just to get the flashback games because you get way more bang for your buck. This makes more sense, like $20 versus those. But you don't need the system for it. Yeah, I get all that other shit. But still, I'm just wondering, like, what the fuck's going on with it? The fact that they have been so slow to bring out information, despite the fact that there has been a ton of interest and speculation about this, I'm just wondering, like, why be quiet about it? That's what makes me kind of wonder about it. Like, there's rumors and rumblings that they might end up going the route of Kickstarter, which just made me start thinking about the Ouya. And then the Ouya, I'm like, ooh, yeah, don't do that. Like, the Ouya was shit from the start and ended as dried shit. That's really about it. Its legacy was nothing more than an example of what not to do in the footnote of gaming history. Like, when you go back to the halls of gaming, into the annals of gaming, and you're just like, hey, let's check out shit that you don't do. Well, the Atari Jaguar, the Ouya, like, and that's some shit right there. I mean, technically, they could actually work off the nostalgia of things like the Atari Lynx and the Atari Jaguar, which are systems that people didn't really play nearly as much. But if they still have any of the rights to many of those games, and they made that shit, like, available digitally, they could go and work off of that kind of nostalgia, because there's lots of people that know about it now but can't afford or find that kind of shit outside of like going and hitting up resellers, going to retro video game stores and going online and shit. Like, there's a lot of routes that they could go due to the backlog that they own, all the licenses that they own. And you figure, look at how many development studios that are out there. If they told them, okay, it's open season, you want to go and make a game based off of our shit, that's fine, but it's exclusive to us, and people start going and checking this shit out, that gives them a platform all their own that makes them stand out, because that's the only thing. While I was looking at all this, I'm like, okay, but what are you going to do that's different? Outside of the fact that you look different and you have the Atari name, what the fuck could you do that everybody else isn't already doing or hasn't already done? Like, if you're gonna allow online play, that's fantastic. Everybody pretty much allows for that kind of shit. If you're gonna allow for streaming, great. Most fucking systems and consoles and any other electronic device, including both of my TVs in my game room and in my living room allow me to be able to go and stream shit, and you're able to go and get shit like PlayStation Now and like all sorts of other stuff, so it's like, what the fuck are you going to do to stand out? Games. Games is like one of the easiest way, like if they ended up making some sort of creator space where they were just very open-minded towards trying to get indie developers to jump on the bandwagon to make stuff for them, this gives them the ability to not only provide a system or a stream machine, whatever fuck you really want to go with, but to go and provide that as well as give like a bountiful amount of games and say, this is where you go and find them. If any of you are interested in working on this shit, come on in. I'm just wondering how they would go about it. I mean, again, all I can do is speculate. All I can do is theorize because there's nothing else to go off of. And if they are going the Kickstarter route, I'm sorry, if Atari needs to fucking crowdfund, stop. Just fucking stop. I know that there's plenty of folks out there who will be like, yeah, I'd be all for supporting it, but I just think that just given the company's track record that it would be a bad idea and most people would end up wanting to go and shy away from it, and especially when you had some shit like the Coleco Chameleon, which ended up getting the actual official name of ColecoVision to be able to utilize that shit, and they fucked up beyond belief. I mean, that's something you need to avoid. That's the truth. Like, you really have to look at the competition and be like, okay, well, that succeeded, and that succeeded, and that fucked up, and that fucked up. Here's how much money that we have to be able to go and work with, and here's our profit margin. That's what we want to go and aim for, and we need to figure all this shit out by this date. You know, there's, again, just too much to go and figure out and think about. Like, when it seems like it's this early in the development of a machine like this, I'm just always hesitant to even want to be like, yeah, I'm excited about it, because I can't be. I'm just constantly guessing it, you know? And it's Atari. Like, I haven't been excited about anything Atari related really, like, at all in my fucking life. And that might sound fucked up to, like, OG Atari fans who are watching a video like this. I'm sorry, I just never gave a shit about Atari. I grew up, like, with Nintendo and Sega, and I'm sure it's very different if you have, like, the nostalgia factor that's playing in, but I look at everything I got to see of Atari from, like, when I was a kid going forward, and it was them just fucking up over and over again. Their handheld, it fucking sucked. The Jaguar, it fucking sucked. Then they became third party, and even that they were fucking up. And I'm just like, okay, who do you got in charge right now that's gonna end up doing this kind of shit and doing it better than before, that's gonna allow gamers, and especially those with some sort of memory of your history, to be like, yeah, I trust them again to go and put out a good product and to do a good job. Like, they have a lot of lost time to go and make up for, and whoever they have in charge of this shit, I hope that they've got a game plan and the blueprint completely fucking figured out, because right now, it's just skepticism. From all around this motherfucker right here, just tons and tons of it. So, for all of you out there, just curious, what the fuck do you think about the Atari Box? Again, I was already asked about it, so it's like, you know what, I'll just go and make a video about it, because I was streaming yesterday, and they're like, what do you think about the Atari Box? And I was like, I'll make a video about it tomorrow, and here I am going and doing exactly that. But, to me, I just don't know, but hopefully it doesn't suck. I would like to see it actually do well. I would like them to do smart things, but I have very little fucking faith. Like that much fucking faith. Like that much faith. Sorry, just don't really have much. But that's the nice thing, is whenever you are expecting very little and they end up pulling through and really fucking doing a good job, you're like, hey, pleasant surprise. But if not, you're not really losing out and you're not disappointed. There you go. Anyway, this is AlphaOmegaSin, as always, nerds, nerdettes, and gamers game the fuck on!